I will never forget the day I met John J. Hooker. I was newly divorced, living in downtown Nashville. My two daughters were grown, and I was working at a retirement community where he lived. He was 6'5" to my little 5 feet and very eccentric. He wore a long black coat even in the heat of summer. He was a brilliant constitutional lawyer and had been involved in the civil rights movement. So one day we were discussing a court case. He pulled out a pocket constitution out of his black coat pocket and said, "My dear, you realize this is unconstitutional." And when I looked puzzled, he said, "When is the last time you read your Constitution?" It was in that moment I realized I had never read my Constitution, and furthermore, I never thought of it as mine. I began to ask others the same question, and 9 times out of 10, the answer was they had never read their Constitution. So I began researching to find out why. And I learned that there's a federal mandate, 108-447, that says all schools that receive federal funds are to have a program on the Constitution on or around September 17th each year. I started traveling to social study teachers' conferences, and I was asking teachers what they did for Constitution Day. Most had no idea what I was talking about. So I explained the mandate, and I said, if we offered a free program, would you participate? The answer was a resounding yes. And so the 917 Society was up and running. I remember driving after work for Uber to help pay to get the 501c3 paperwork done. And as I drove around Nashville, I talked to everyone about the Constitution, and I even bought some to hand out, and I would ask questions. Most were like me. They just had bits and pieces of it. They memorized for a test and then never looked at it again. I'm sure a lot of people thought I was crazy, and there were many that thought Dolly Parton was picking them up in Uber. But I really learned just how important this project is and how serious a problem we have in this country. How can we expect our Constitution to protect our God-given rights if we don't honor, respect, and protect it? So as I was running around Nashville, I decided that I would go see my local congressman. I went to visit him and tell him about the idea for the project and how excited I was about getting our young people to read the Constitution. He looked at me and he said, "Nobody cares about the Constitution." Well, you can imagine I left his office pretty dejected, but not after I had told him that his oath of office was to uphold the Constitution, and it sure didn't sound like he was doing that to me. Needless to say, he was not my biggest fan. But I do remember walking to my apartment with tears rolling down my face, and I knew I was supposed to do this, but I had no idea of how. I had no money, no connections. But then he did something no man should ever do. He made a Southern woman mad. And after I got over my pity party, I decided that I was going to get busy and I was going to show him. But then some bizarre physical symptoms hit. I was in Memphis at a social study teachers conference when the first of 6 bizarre episodes happened. I would become paralyzed on my right side. I couldn't talk or communicate, and I would be rushed to the hospital. This kept happening, and for 6 months, I kept being rushed to the hospital, no answers. I was sent to 5 different specialists, but nobody could figure out what was going on. Finally, I was diagnosed with a 2-centimeter left frontal lobe meningioma brain tumor. I was told to get my affairs in order and to start radiation and seizure meds. But I knew in my spirit that just wasn't the right course for me. I found an amazing neurosurgeon at Vanderbilt, Dr. Lola Chambliss, and with her guidance, I was encouraged to watch and wait. It ended up being benign, and it is still there, but so am I. So I decided to move out of downtown Nashville to the outskirts where I met Carol Hamby. And I consider Carol a spiritual sister. We spent a lot of hours on the road and a lot of hours praying. And I was telling her about my idea for the 917 Society and how I needed to pick it back up. And she agreed and said she would help me. So we visited a Cheatham County meeting, and there we met Senator Kerry Roberts and his lovely wife, Diane. I thought he would be just like the other congressmen, so I wasn't expecting very much. But Kerry was the exact opposite. He got so excited about what we were doing. He said, not only will we help you, but we will put together a fundraiser. So our very first year, he helped us put a fundraiser together. He introduced us to Tennessee Senator Mark Green, who is now Congressman Mark Green, who wrote a personal check to help support us from the very beginning. And that first year of distribution was 2016, and we reached 25,000 students in Middle Tennessee and kept growing, and we were getting requests from other states. By 2018, Dr. Ming Wayne came on board as our Founders Club president, and Lee Beeman became our vice president. I cannot tell you how important these early supporters have been for us, and they have made all the difference in the world. And each year we serve more and more students. And then I met Joni Hargrove. She's like a sister. A lot of people think we're the same person. We get each other's text, and she looks like my twin. She has recruited so many founders and worked so hard and now serves on our executive board, as do Carol. And we also have David Hairston on our board and Norma Crow. We've also added an advisory board, and we'll be expanding it this next year. And that includes Kathy Kolb. She is an amazing teacher, and she's over our Education Advisory Board. We have Corinthia Elder, who is a naturalized citizen, and we're so excited to have her on our board, and she helps with the volunteer outreach. And then we have Tommy Vallejos, and Tommy works really hard with a lot of different Latino organizations, and we are so excited to have him in our community outreach. And then we also have amazing volunteer staff. We have two that work with us constantly. We have Martha Leary, who does our database management of all the schools across the nation. And then we have Marie Tillman, and she handles our newsletter and our website, and they are just priceless in helping us in this mission. What began as a very small grassroots effort is now taking America by storm, and it's bringing our Constitution to the youth of our country. But we cannot do this without your help. So how do we do this? Well, we work all year to raise funds to print and distribute constitutions to 8th graders, plus free educational resources for the classroom. We actively pursue the principals and teachers by emailing them in the spring to let them know about the program. You can say we're educating our educators. We choose 8th grade because that's the year in our U.S. curriculum that students are to have the Constitution in depth. Every year, every 8th grader can receive their Constitution from the 917 Society, whether they're public, private, or homeschool. And once we have taken orders directly from the schools, we actively go into the communities and we ask for volunteers across the country to help us reach out to their schools that haven't responded. And those groups include AMVATs, our Veterans of Foreign Wars, our SARs, our DARs, our Moms for Liberty did an amazing job this year, our Civitan, Rotary, and many other organizations. You saw a lot of those pictures in the video earlier of so many volunteers across the country getting excited about the Constitution. We also offer a classroom contest for students for Constitution Day where we give gift cards, and we have a new scholarship program that Kathy Cobb will be heading up for our students. You saw the work we're doing in the videos earlier, and you see your donations in action. I hesitated to share my story because this project is not about me. It is about we, the people. Your story matters. Your